let's move on now to our final segment of the day. We're going to talk about the expectations for UMass this season in Hockey East and nationally. So they are ranked number 2 in Hockey East in the coaches poll and by proxy in the USCHO poll because they're ranked number 10 nationally and they're the second highest ranked Hockey East team behind Northeastern. So I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts, like everybody's thoughts. What do we think that this team can do? Let's start in Hockey East. What do we think they can do? Where do we think they're going to end up at the end of the regular season? And what do we think they can do in the tournament?
I think they're at least a top 5 team. I don't think they'll be in the top 3, but I think top 5. I think because they are young, they will need to gain that experience, and that might happen later on in the season.
Okay.
Their biggest challenge to make an impact in Hockey East is going to be in those games against Northeastern because you got to score, and you got to score on that goaltender. You got to score on Devin Levy, and that is not a easy task at hand to do so. So I think if you want to prove that you can compete with these high-level teams, it starts right in your own division, right in your own conference, and Northeastern's going to be right there along with the other. Like, every conference game is so important, but I really do think the ones against Northeastern are going to be the ones that show the most for UMass.
Absolutely. The Northeastern games are going to be tough. They did blow the doors off Northeastern in one game. It was like Devin Levi's only bad game of the year happened to be against UMass, where he got pulled after like 17 minutes or something stupid like that.
I remember it was like, and there were no fans at that point for Northeastern because it was early in the season. But we had traveled to that game, and I remember just sitting there in this empty stadium. You have no one saying anything because it's dead. Like, you could hear a pin drop except for the ice, and it's just UMass throwing every shot possible at the net, and they're all going in. But that every other game that season, I think he had it out for UMass after that one because he was hungry for the rest of that season.
That was notably, I think, Cam Donaldson's only goal of the year for UMass was on Devin Levi. So I think that Levi is an incredible goalie. I think he's not only going to be the best goalie in college hockey, I think he's like the odds-on favorite to win the Hobie Baker Award. Yeah. Just an insane talent. And I'm not trying to imply that he's just going to be able to be scored on by anybody, but like there is that hope that lingers in people's heads of like, if Cam Donaldson scores his only career goal against Devin Levi, or his only UMass goal, I should say, against Devin Levi, like that opens up the door for some people to be able to break through. And granted, it was a bad game, but there's still options there. In terms of what I think that UMass can do in Hockey East, I actually think that the preseason prediction is pretty spot on. I think they're probably going to finish second right behind Northeastern. There's like a couple teams that come to my mind that can sort of creep up on them. Really 3 teams. I think BU, UConn, and UMass Lowell could all very well take that 2 spot. Like the top 4 or 5 is going to be so close in Hockey East this year. I think Northeastern's definitely going to take the top spot because of Levi, but there's so much room for the other teams. I do think, though, that UMass having all this experience in the coaching, even if they don't have as much in players, like they have experience being on top. They have experience like winning Hockey East. And I think that that's going to really guide them a lot. And I think that that's going to help them be in the top 2 in Hockey East. And they could definitely finish 3rd, 4th, 5th. There's so many teams that are good that it's hard to pick, but I'm going to say that they're probably a second place team in Hockey East.
I'm also going to throw in there, and this isn't even an advertisement, but some of the best games that UMass played conference-wise last season were when Mullen Center was packed. Mm-hmm. They like to show up when there's fans in that arena, and I think that because it brings, like, they're cheering, everything going on, I think that's what is going to need to happen for conference play. This is a new team that needs confidence, that needs to build that confidence, and getting those people in that arena is going to be key, especially for those big games.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's flash forward to March. The regular season ends. They're in. Nice shout out to Sophie's birthday, which is in March.
Can't help it. It's a good month.
I suppose I didn't know that.
No, it's fine.
What a friend. So
happy.
I'm sorry.
But in any case, so we've predicted the regular season. How far do you guys think that UMass hockey could make it in the Hockey East tournament? How do we see that playing out? I'm going to start with you, Sophie. How do you see this playing out?
I think first and foremost, they can make it far. They could even win it if they figure out goaltending. I think everywhere else you have the power. We know defense is going to be solid. You have multiple forwards that we're all very excited to see, that had superlatives for most of the top names, and that there were more that we didn't have an exact title for that we know are going to show up on that ice. But I think where that real mystery and where that real weakness is that you mentioned earlier was goaltending. Is they don't, if Luke has a bad game, we don't know anything about Cole. We don't know how he's going to do it now, and he's not coming from a school with the highest reputation there for hockey.
Sounds
so
like Arizona State hate club right now.
it's not an Arizona State hair club.
They have great uniforms, should say.
Okay.
I love their
Sick.
See, it's not a
uniforms.
hate club.
Sick
We like the
uniforms.
uniforms. I just think that in that regard, it has to start with your goaltending before you can even look towards winning a hockey championship, because they can do it. They have the skill. That's the one area I'm not sure they have it.
Yeah,
in.
and it's pretty hard to win without a goalie, I should
Yes.
say. Kayla, what are you thinking postseason-wise for Hockey East?
I think they'll make it far if they, like Sophie said, goaltender. I'm saying that if they can figure out the lines. I know last year the lines were so up and down with injuries and other factors, and we never really knew exactly what a line was going to be. I think if they can find that chemistry with each line, they'll make it far.
Yeah, I think they're going to figure it out. I think they're going to figure out both those things, and I don't think the goaltending might not necessarily be the best, but I think that by that point in the season, they will hopefully at least know what they're going to get out of it and what they need to do. If the defense needs to play a little bit harder defense and be less offensive minded, then that's just the way it goes. I think they're going to finish second in Hockey East in the regular season, but I envision them losing in the semifinal round. I cannot see them losing in the quarterfinals. They're going to have that as a home game because they're going to be in the top 4, I'm assuming. So they're going to have that as a home game, and I think that they could really beat anybody lower than 5. So I definitely think they're going to make it to the TD Garden again, but I think that they might lose in the semifinal round because like we were already saying, like there's so many good teams in Hockey East, and people are hungry. I have to imagine that BU hockey is hungry to be back to what it was forever. BU and BC were always number 1 and number 2. BC, I think, is going to be in a rebuilding year, so I'm not including them in this conversation. But BU specifically, I think they're going to be hungry. And I think that if UMass runs into BU in the Hockey East semifinals, I think UMass loses that game.
The one game BC will be hungry during is that Frozen Fenway one. No one wants to go home from Fenway as the loser for that. So,
Yeah, you're already cold enough as it is. You might as well go out there and get a win.
what is that, January?
January 7th.
Freezing. We'll be freezing.
Get the winter
Yeah.
coats.
Hopefully Fenway Park has heated spots for us available. I don't know what the press situation is going to look like there, so let's just hope it's something good.
I'm gonna bring a massive heater.
Let's talk about nationally. Where do we think? I want to have us each predict like a number ranking for them at the end of the hockey's playoffs for nationally, and then what we think they can do in the NCAA tournament. I'm assuming we all think they're going to make the NCAA tournament. Is that a good baseline? Yes, we do. Definitely think they're all going to make it. So let's just throw out those predictions. And since I'm being bad and putting these two on the spot, I'm going to go first with what I think about this.
Thank gosh.
I think that they're going to end up being a 4 seed. I think that's the range that I'm going. I think they could sneak into a 3 seed at like number 12. But I think that 12 to 16 is probably where they end up. And I'm going to say they end up 13th or 14th overall after Hockey East is all said and done. And obviously if they win in the semifinals and make it to the finals and potentially win the Hockey East finals, that number changes. But since I predicted them to lose in the semifinal round, I think what would match that is probably like a 14 ranking where they just end up as a 4 seed, probably still closer to home because the tournament likes to schedule teams close to home if they can. We saw last year UMass had a huge draw in Worcester. Almost all the fans were for UMass because they were so close. So I think that that's going to happen again. I don't think the 4 seed is going to be a big risk for them to end up in like Pennsylvania or Colorado or North Dakota is the furthest regional for this year. I don't think they're going to end up in either of those 2 places. I do think they're going to end up in Connecticut or New Hampshire, one of those 2. But I think they're going to be a 4 seed, and I think that they're probably not a team that's going to shock the world and top a 1 seed. So if they end up being a 4 seed, I think that's probably where the road ends for them.
I think I'm going to, listening to your reasoning, I think I got to agree that it's going to be like 13th, 14th nationally.
Mm-hmm.
I think 10th is going off of last year's win in that Hockey East Championship, but you got a lot of guys leaving. So I think that you got to kind of leave some room for a little drop there. So I'm definitely going to agree with you on that one.
I agree with the 4 seed. I also think that seeing Denver will be a test for them to also see they'll be a 4 seed, because if they can't even keep it close to Denver, then definitely a 4 seed.
The only thing with Denver is that is opening.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They struggled their opening games last season and still won Hockey East. So I think that it's hard to say like right then and there that's going to be the moment like to see if they can do it. Yeah. But it's definitely going to be a huge test because it's also the first time we're besides like yes, there's an exhibition game, but there's nothing on the line there. Yeah. You got something on the line in this game, and that's when we're going to see some of these newer guys and see what they're capable of.
Yeah, along those lines, I think Denver is definitely a little bit too early to tell. I'm hoping that when they travel to Wisconsin for that holiday face-off in December, I'm hoping that Wisconsin beats Lake Superior State in their first game and that UMass beats Clarkson so that we can see UMass versus Wisconsin. I think that will be the real tell. It's going to be mid-season. It's going to be kind of like the Michigan series that they played during the holiday break, except not as bad because Michigan was a absolute powerhouse at that time. They were number 1 in the country. They had so many good players that they had at their disposal, and I think that wasn't as good of a test for UMass as this Wisconsin will be, because Wisconsin's not going to be one of the top teams in the country, but they're certainly going to be a really good hockey team. Yep. So I have December 29th marked on my calendar as if UMass beats Clarkson and if Wisconsin beats Lake Superior State. I think that'll be such a good test for them to find out where they stand, and that'll give us a really good idea of where they could end up nationally for sure.
I think you also got to, if you're talking about that one, you also got to give a shout out to the Friendship Four. They're going to Northern Ireland, playing in Belfast, right during Thanksgiving week. So got to give a little shout out to that one.
They're going a lot of fun places. Hopefully, we're able to make it to most of those fun places.
Cross our fingers.
That's going to wrap up this episode of the Collegian Sports Podcast. I think that we did a lot of good hockey talk. Really broke down all of the expectations for UMass hockey. And I think that this is a really good place to end it. So I am going to sign us off. Kayla and Sophie, it was great to have you. Hopefully we're doing more of these during the season. Might also squeeze Joey in for a little bit if we can. But that's all.